What's good, peeps? In this video, I'll show you how to make this wooden snowflake. From construction, to finishing, to mounting. This video will help you create the perfect holiday project. I'm going to start by cutting down all of the wood that I'm going to need for the snowflake. So I'm going to start by measuring up my wood and then cutting my first 90-degree angle. This is going to be that cross brace that goes in the center of the snowflake. I'm then going to move my miter saw to 30-degree angles so that I can start cutting those 4 cross braces that are going to go on the other sides of my center piece here. I measure up that wood, mark it off so I can get my first cross member, and then I'm just going to use that as a template for my other 3 so that I know all of them are the exact same size. Now I need to cut my pieces that are going to make the star of the snowflake, so I'm going to be cutting 2 30-degree angles on each end. And since I need 12 of these boards at the exact same length, what I'm going to do to make my life easier is once I find the right length of that first board, is I'm going to set up a stopping block at that length so I can just run my pieces through, and it'll make my life a lot easier, and this process will go much faster this way. And I'm going to do that exact same process with my 3-inch lengths here that are going to go on the outside of all of the spikes for the snowflake. So basically I'm just going to run those through until I have 12 of those smaller pieces. And now that we have all of our pieces cut, it's time to adhere those together with our brad nailer and wood glue. I'm going to start by finding the center of that big board and marking it so that we have something to align our boards with. We want to make sure everything is glued up before we align everything. And then we're going to go ahead and secure these with our 1.5-inch brad nails on the other side of that board. I like to use 2 nails just to make sure that everything isn't wobbly. I can go in on the other side and start to fasten all of these together. And then when you get to this last one, it is kind of difficult to get in there, but you just kind of have to figure it out as you go and make sure that that is really tightly secured in place. Now we're going to start putting together that star in the center of our snowflake. All this is our 30-degree angles coming together with a butt joint, so we're just going to glue that up. Then we're going to nail that into place with our 1.5-inch nails again. I like using 3 nails on this just to make sure that everything is very structurally sound. And just like that, you have 1 of the 6 points you need for the star. And with all of those finished up, we can now adhere those to the actual center points. So I'm just going to glue that up and then staple that in again with our 1.5-inch nails. And then we'll continue that step until everything is secured into place. And the last step for adhering everything together is going to be these end pieces that we have. So I'm using one of those pieces as a spacer so that everything is equally aligned. I'm going to glue and then nail everything in place like we did in all of our previous steps. And then I'll repeat until everything is all together. And just like that, we have our final wood snowflake. Now we can move on to the finishing of this piece. There's just a few end spots that I'd like to sand down because there's a marking on these from the store, and I just want to make sure those are gone before staining. And speaking of staining, I chose to go with this gel stain from Varathane because I have so many nail holes that I really don't want to fill with wood filler and then have to sand down those holes. This gel stain's really going to get in all the cracks and crevices and start to even everything out, so it'll save me some steps and some time in the end. When I'm staining, I really like to use just an old dish rag that I cut up. This allows me to really push all of that thick product into all of the cracks and crevices, and once I've got everything covered, I like to just go over it one more time to really make sure that everything is even and that product is pushed into the wood grain. And with that being completed, we're going to allow everything to dry overnight before we start our whitewash. Now I'm just mixing up some old paint that I had laying around here, and I'm going to thin this down by about half on one side of my container. And the other half is going to be about 1/4 paint versus 3/4 water so that I can kind of get some variety while I'm putting this over the stain. And while I'm putting this on, I'm going to be wiping some away and keeping some in certain areas. This is really going to give that nice weathered look. It's going to make it look more 3-dimensional, and it's also going to give a cool kind of vintage holiday vibe. And when I'm done with that whitewashing, I'm actually going to come in with a dry brushing effect. So this is basically taking your thick paint and then just wiping off almost all of it from your brush and going over the surface so that it really starts to bring out some of those highlights and creates a cool brush stroke effect. Now here you can see what that flat gray versus the whitewashing effect will look like. Now to be able to hang the snowflake on the side of the house, I need to attach a wire using a screw. I'm going to take that wire, wrap it around a few times, and then really tighten that screw so that the wire is embedded into the wood. I'm just going to bend that wire down so it doesn't scratch anything, and then you can see here I'm pulling and that thing is not going anywhere. Now the last step in this project is to clear coat so that everything is sealed and that finish will actually last. We want to make sure that the wood is protected, and this will give a nice professional finish in the end. You want to make sure that you're using an exterior safe clear coat, and I'm just using a spray paint because it's much easier than having to brush everything on in the end. And once that clear coat is finished, we're going to allow that to dry for 24 hours before we handle it so we can make sure that finish is fully cured. Now that that's had a chance to fully cure, we're going to hang this, and I'm just using some C screws that I put into the trim, and then I'm going to be using those wires and wrapping that around. This is the moment of truth to see if it hangs, and boom! It does! So basically, it was a little crooked, so all I have to do is realign that by making that left hand side a little bit shorter. And now, with that being hung, this project is fully complete.